Hey everybody, it's Rebecca at Design and Adorn. I would like to show you how to bind off a braid so that you can cut it and glue on end caps. So I made this really cool honeycomb slider bead, and I'm going to pop this onto some pre-braided satin cord. So first thing you want to do is you want to get your bead on here. Go on. Think skinny thoughts. It goes. You just gotta get it in there. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, so there's my bead. And when you get this this braided cord in your kit, because with the honeycomb slider bead kit, you're not making the cord. You're just making the focal bead. So your kit is gonna have the ends melted so that they don't fray, don't unravel in transit. If the cord is the exact length you want, you could just go ahead and glue the end cap right on here, provided that the melty part isn't going to stick out. This end, the melty part's really melty, so I'm gonna wanna cut that off. Or if the cord is longer than you want, then you just measure it out and decide where you want to bind it. So if we're just binding to cut off the melty part, I'll show you how to do that. It's the same as if you want to bind it for a different length. You just decide where you're going to put it. So I'm going to take some thread, and I'm just stretching it out here. I'm just tugging it between my two hands. So I want about 18 inches of my thread here, and I am folding it unevenly. So there's a long side and a short side, and I'm gonna put this wherever I would like to do my binding so I could cut. So I wanna cut off this melty bit, so I'm gonna go down just a little bit past it so that I have room to get my scissors in between the binding and the melty bit. So I'm gonna hold this here. I'm holding it with my non-dominant hand, and with my dominant hand, I'm going to take the long side, I'm going to wrap around the braid, and as I wrap around, I'm also wrapping around this shorter piece of thread. It's just sitting on top of my braid. I'm just going to wrap around. You do not have to like death grip this, just pull it firmly, snugly, but you don't need to pull it for all your worth. We are trying to get our wraps next to each other. See how they're all lined up there? Going for about like 1/8 of an inch of wraps. That's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 wraps. So that's good. I want to take my tail now and put it through the loop that's here under my thumb. But first I have to reposition my hands. Otherwise, these wraps are going to unravel. So hold this, I'm just gonna pinch this, turn my hand, just because I'm working within the limits of my own personal manual dexterity. So now that I've repositioned my hands, see that loop there? That's what I'm aiming for. I'm gonna take the working thread, that's the one that was doing all the wrapping, that was longer, that goes through that loop. And then I grab this tail, the one that's just been hanging out this whole time, and I'm gonna pull it, and as I pull it, the loop closes up, pull, pull, pull. And then I can tug these in opposite directions to snug that up, and then I'm just gonna tie a little extra square knot, granny's knot, right over left, left over right, or left over right, left over right. Doesn't matter, we're just making a little extra knot there. And then I'm going to trim the tails nice and close. I'm gonna go ahead and do this at the other end as well. So I just tug a piece of thread here, get all the stretch out of it, just pull, 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 pull. And again, I'm gonna fold this unevenly so there's a long side and a short side. And I don't know, I always like to have mine face so that my loop and the part that I'm cutting is pointing towards the left. It doesn't matter, it works either way. This is just what's comfortable for me and my hands. So I'm gonna hold this here. I'm holding it again with my non-dominant hand. and I find the long side. Oops, get out of there. All right, I want the short piece to stay put. So I'm gonna wrap around with the long side. Notice as I'm coming around, I catch it with my, my middle finger, my left hand. All right, that looks good. I'm going to reposition. So pinch, turn my hands. All right, we're gonna take the long side, go through that loop, pull the short side, pull, pull, pull. And then we're gonna pull both of them in opposite directions to really snug that up. And again, tie a little extra knot. Now I can trim these. Okay, I've done the binding, so that means that when I cut the ends, this isn't going to immediately unravel, which is fantastic because I don't want it to unravel. So now I'm gonna take some scrap paper. Got some toothpicks here. Here's my glue. I'm gonna use E6000. And this is an acrylic end cap, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop this apart. Glue goes in here. That's obviously the magnet side. So I'm just gonna set those guys there. And I'm gonna take some nice sharp scissors and I'm gonna give this a cut here. Every time you cut your braid, there's a keep side and a throwaway side. You wanna make sure you're cutting over here on the throwaway side, because if I cut over here, then I just cut my binding off and this will in fact unravel and I'll be sad. So, cut, cut, cut. This one's really thick, so it takes a few little chops to get through there. It's a very heavy duty braid. Ta-da! All right, so you see this little bit here, this little like fluffy bit and a little bit fluffy over there. You just leave that alone. That's totally fine. You don't need to give this any haircuts. No good will come of that. Let's put some glue on here. This is your last opportunity, let me say, your last opportunity to make sure that you actually have your pendant on here. Once you glue your end cap on, your pendant won't fit over the end cap. So the best time to put it on is before you've cut the ends, but if you missed that opportunity, now's your last one. So I got a little blob of E6000. The size blob you need depends on how big the end cap is, but the blob has to be smaller than the end cap. This is approximately a 6mm sphere. I spend a lot of time every day working with things that are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 millimeters. So I'm pretty good at saying how big a thing is. You don't need to actually know the size. You just need to look at it and go, is my blob smaller than the opening of the end cap? If so, you're golden. So I've got some glue in here. Now we're going to push and twist. Push and twist, push and twist. And you'll feel when you are at the end of the road, when you can't go any further, and that's what you want. And then we're just going to inspect it, make sure there's no glue leaking out anywhere. That looks good. We're gonna set that end aside. Gonna do it again on the other side. Cut, 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 cut. Pretty hefty braid. Woo, there it goes. All right, so there's my cut. Here's the other side of my end cap. Let me get a blob of glue on here. If you're not sure, if you don't have a lot of confidence in your ability to, whoa, I just threw my blob of glue. If you don't have a lot of confidence in your ability to judge the size of your blob of glue, aim smaller rather than bigger, because you can always put more glue in. It's not very convenient to try to scoop the glue back out of the end cap. Notice the end cap is not, get that in there, it's not full. It's at most half full. If your end cap is totally full of glue, the glue is just gonna come squirting right back out as soon as you push the braid in. So no more than half full. And we're gonna push and twist. Push, 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 twist, twist, twist. Keep going until you feel you're at the end. That's that. All right, important steps. Let's get that little excess glue off the end of my Tuba E6000. So I cleaned that off, put the lid back on. And take these gluey toothpicks before they can cause any trouble. I'm gonna fold them up in my scrap piece of paper. Whoop. I'm gonna keep these guys away from each other so that they don't try to jump, so the magnets don't pull. I like zoom out a little bit. So this is my video studio. This is not really where this is gonna sit and wait for the glue to dry. It takes 24 hours for it to dry, but this technique right here, this is what I do every time I'm waiting for something to dry. I take some blue painter's tape and I tape it down so that my end caps are far enough apart that the magnets can't grab it. And then grab a Sharpie and I put RTW that's ready to wear. And then I put the time, I always round it. We're gonna call that 4:30 p.m. And then over here, we're gonna put tomorrow's date. So this is gonna be ready tomorrow on the 13th. And because I need reminders about when it is, I'm also gonna put that that's Friday. So again, I wouldn't actually leave this here in my photo studio, but over on one of my work tables, I will have this taped, ready to go, so I know how long it's been sitting around. So that is how you do your binding so that you can cut and then glue end caps on a braid. So this was a pre-braided piece of satin rope, but you can do this for one that you braided yourself. It's the same technique for beaded kumihimo as well. You're just working with that little teeny tiny nubbin at the end where there aren't any beads, but the binding, cutting, gluing, that's all exactly the same.